I'm Natalie Conrad, and I'm a member of the Career Coffee Series Committee. So I'd like to welcome you to this Career Coffee event on personal branding. So this Career Coffee Series is kind of meant to provide a forum to explore a variety of career topics and hopefully kind of like re-energize your career path. It's just a safe space for conversation, personal growth, and career networking. We plan to have 2 more events this year, and we're just kind of seeing how things go with this new virtual format, and we'll kind of decide, if it will be in person or virtual as we go. Those are coming up in August and November. But with that, I'd like to introduce Rose McKinney from Pineapple PR, and she's going to get us started on a discussion about propelling your personal brand.
Thank you, Natalie. And thank you also to PRSA for offering this format. It's really fascinating to watch how our community comes together. And so hats off, Kara, for all of your help in getting this coordinated from the PRSA standpoint, and to Eva Kaiser for being a champion of the career coffees, and Natalie for all of your hard work to help bring this to be. Throughout my career, PRSA has been pivotal at every stage, from day one to many now decades into a career. So I'm very happy to be here today. We're going to talk about personal branding. I have a short deck of slides, but what I'd really like to do is whiz through that fairly quickly so that we can get to Q&A and share information among each other. In looking at the list of registrations, I saw half the names of people that I know and have known for many years in this community, and then quite a few new names. And I did a little professional stalking, looking at LinkedIn profiles to figure out who was going to be listening today. And we have got a mix of folks. So I'm hoping that you'll find the content relevant, whether you are seeking a job, looking for that next opportunity, trying to get promoted within your current organization, or if you are a solo practitioner or business owner and need to have your brand stand out from that. So where I'm going to start, let's see if I can do this. Okay, first technical glitch. How do I advance the slide? Kara or Natalie?
So you should be able to, depending on how you have your slideshow set, just click on your mouse or arrow.
There we go.
There you go.
Thank you. So 1968, in reflecting on personal brands, I think 1968 for me is where this all began, but I didn't know that. And the reason I say 1968, I was a toddler. My parents decided to buy a business in Des Moines, Iowa, and move my 2 older sisters and me from suburban Chicago to truly the heart of the Midwest in Iowa. And I had no clue that this was going to be a transformation in our family. Well, as I grew up and witnessed my mom and dad working in the business, and this was a wholesale electrical distributorship, I noticed kitchen table meetings. I noticed Saturdays at the office. I helped out with garbage. I helped out as I got older with alphabetizing things. I was starting to experience small business ownership. Well, fast forward many years, I'm a small business owner. And so that was a time period that began to really form what I might become and gave me a chance to witness what that might be like. All of us have a point in our lives where we call back to our beginnings, our foundations. And as we know from working in communications and marketing, every brand has a genesis, has a beginning. And so for me, it was being very young and growing up in a family business and witnessing what that might be like. So fast forward just a little bit. This is me in nursery school, and I'll call it my first business meeting. Even as a young child, my parents would give me lots of advice about being a professional, about having a business, about interacting in the world. And I'm a pretty quick person. So for those of you who know me, I'm quick to have ideas. I'm quick to throw things into the conversation. I'm somebody that likes action and likes results. But I do remember my mother telling me my entire life that I needed to think before I speak. She was an English teacher originally, and she believed in the best expression possible and in carefully edited and always proofread material. So when little Rose would go off chit-chatting, she'd always say, Rose, you must think before you speak. So that has stayed with me. And again, I think that that has been part of building a personal brand and knowing just how important it is to have your expression, especially of yourself, be spot on. Fast forward even more. As I think about personal branding and as I've worked with people throughout their careers, it's not so much about what are the answers, what should my brand be? I'm trying to figure out what my brand should be. It's really about asking the right questions. And you guys know this too from our work as communications professionals. When you ask the right questions, when you're doing interviews, when you're getting background information, when you're digging in, it's what you ask that leads you to the answers. Or as we like to tell clients, we don't necessarily have the answers, but we can ask the questions that will pull the answers out of the experts. So the questions are the answers. If we were all together, and I really wish that we could have been hosting this at Pineapple today and interacting with you face to face, we often play a brand game. And it's like 20 questions. Each of you would get a sticker on your back with the name of a brand, and you'd have to go around and ask questions to figure out what brand sticker you're wearing on your back. And so by asking questions, you figure out, oh, I'm wearing Dairy Queen on my back, or I'm wearing Cheerios on my back, or whatever brand it might have been. And it's the same thing if you've gone through the accreditation process or you're thinking about getting your APR through PRSA. We talk a lot about if you know what the questions are, you'll have the answers. So with personal branding, it's the same sort of thing. Know what questions to ask. Listen to the process of coming to the brand. And one thing that I want to emphasize is that you as a person are the most valuable, rewarding, and long-lasting brand that you are ever going to work with. Often with students or in mentoring people early in their PR careers, you'll ask, what's your dream job? What do you want to do? Who do you want to work for? And early on, people often have pretty lofty ideas. Sometimes it's, big consumer brands or sports brands, and those can be great jobs, and that might be your dream job. Very few of us wake up and say, I think I'd like to work for a B2B company that manufactures inverters for the recreational vehicle market, which is something I really did work on. It was one of the best experiences ever, and I could not have known that. So when you think about brands and you think about yourself, you are a brand that is worthy of the best counsel, the best strategy, and the best expression possible. And you are going to be with your brand for your entire life, your entire career. So in the work world, when you go through a branding process, and you've probably participated in some of these along the way, there is a process, not for the sake of a process, but because the process, the questions, lead you to conclusions. So if you're working on a brand for your company, for your employer, your clients, there's probably all these different parts to it. And sometimes the parts don't necessarily seem to connect. It's disparate dots. You do some interviews and you have a workshop and you get intake and you look at competitive. And the job of the brand team is to pull all of these pieces together. And when we do it in the work world, we're putting together a series of documents, a brand platform, a style guide, key messages. It's very formal. And you probably have some sort of rollout or launch for this brand that you've created. That makes a lot of sense for products and services and for organizations. But who is your marketing department? Who is your agency? Well, when you're talking about your personal brand, it's you. It's you, and I would encourage it to be maybe a few colleagues, to pull in some friends, to pull in some mentors, to maybe pull in some folks that you don't know well, but that can help you get a good scope of yourself and of your personal brand. But ultimately, you're going to be in the driver's seat. You're going to be your marketing department, your agency, and you're going to begin to develop your brand. What I want to offer are 3 simple steps. And note, I'm telling you these are simple steps. It does not mean that they're easy. These are steps that take work and that require you to do a lot of questioning and thinking and pulling together of disparate parts. But they're not that difficult to understand. They're pretty simple. So each of us has a brand opportunity just about every day, and particularly when we're meeting new people. The simplest, hello, my name is your personal brand opportunity. And the question becomes, how do you answer that question? You could introduce yourself simply, hello, my name is Rose McKinney. It's a true statement. It's short and sweet and simple, to the point. You could take that as an opportunity to introduce yourself by what you do, your job, that's a common one. You could introduce yourself by your passions. I remember at one of our career coffees earlier this spring, we went around and we introduced ourselves, and we had talked to an individual, and you were supposed to tell that individual something that you could teach them. And then the introduction became that. So every time you have this initial brand opportunity, whether you're sending an email or you're interacting face to face, you get a chance to put some shape on that. So I've got a Drake Bulldog up here. I went to journalism school at Drake University, and I switched from being a broadcast journalism major to being a public relations major. That was another transformation. And I realized that it was probably the beginning of my personal, professional brand. I got involved in a Women in Communications chapter on campus. I was involved in many different campus activities. I had internships, and a pattern was beginning. It was also a time where I sat in a PR class. I had a teacher that had worked in the industry for many years. She'd been with a PR firm in Chicago. She'd served as the communications director for the governor of Iowa. And I had a role model and I had a dream. And it was during one of these classes that I said, I'd like to own my own PR firm. I was beginning to have aspirations for my career and for my brand. And that's another part of branding that we're going to talk about. Your brand isn't just where you are today, it's about where you want to go in the future. And my goodness, if you're a job seeker, or you're looking for the promotion at work, or you're striking out on your own and you're a business owner, your brand has to be true to where you are today, but it has to have something that will keep people coming back and that encourages them to continue with you. And so brands are current, but they're also future. So let me start with the first step. The first step in personal branding is to define your brand. And you do this with a series of inputs. You think about things just like you would a product, a service, a company in terms of the foundation. What are the things that are core about you? What things do you value? What things make you distinct? And it could be how you approach things. It could be your character. It could be your style. But generally, it's more than just your experience and your skills, because let's face it, we have lots of very talented people in our field, in our community, and so there are lots of people that have comparable skill sets and experience sets. And so when you get at your personal brand, you've got to go beyond what everybody else has to really dig into what it is that you offer to the world. It is the time to pull out the thesaurus, to think of adjectives and adverbs, to really get into the nitty-gritty of words that best describe yourself. And then to be able to back it up with all kinds of examples and anecdotes. Because we all know in PR, if we say, I am trustworthy, I am timely, I am whatever, that's great. But the believability factor comes from whether you are those things. And it's like in those interview questions when they say, tell me about a time when. That's part of your brand. Tell me about a time when. Now, that's all information that you can think about on your own, and that's going to be your own perception of your brand, of yourself. But a brand is more than just what you think it is. A brand is also about what the external world thinks. And so this is where you need to get input and feedback from other people on yourself. One of the places you can look is performance reviews. Look at patterns. What do supervisors and colleagues say about your work? Look at letters of recommendations that you might have gotten or LinkedIn recommendations. Think about all of those different types of assessments. That's one of the reasons I enjoyed the career coffee earlier this spring on all the different types of personality assessments, whether it's Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders or DISC or Enneagrams. These are ways to see yourself, sometimes through your own eyes and sometimes through the eyes of others. And another really great place to think about your brand and its definition is to look at the profiles of jobs that you want in the future. I had one of my students at Metro State the other day send me a job description, and it's for somebody that has, 10 years of experience. She's not there yet, but she said, this is the job that I want in the future. I said, this is good. Use this job description to begin thinking about your own career path and how you will get there and what types of things the world is looking for. So with a product or service, you think about the customer and you think about what's important to the customer. With your brand and your career, think about what's important to the people who are going to hire you. And that's part of defining your brand. One really fun way to go about this to get outside input is to do a simple survey. This is one that you can do on SurveyMonkey, or MailChimp has a survey function, and there are a variety of them out there. But just to gather some input. This was introduced to me a number of years ago, and I've used it, gosh, for probably the better part of about 10 or 15 years. But ask people to give you 3 words or phrases that describe yourself. Have them fill in a blank that they can count on you to, and then just let you know if they're a personal or professional connection. When you get that data back, it's interesting to see the patterns. Again, sometimes people have different words to describe something about you that you hadn't thought of yourself, or sometimes you begin to see yourself through a different lens, and often it just validates exactly what you were thinking. So it's a fun way to get information. I just saw somebody on Facebook do this the other day. I do it from time to time every few years just to get updates and think about where my brand is and what the perception is. And it's fun. And right now, as we're working from home and spending more time online, it's a quick and easy way to get that input. This is a tag cloud. This is from 2011 when tag clouds were very, very popular, but took the survey information and pulled it together, and it helped us see where the ideas were flowing and what the direction was going. So once you've defined your brand, spend some time going out there and expressing your brand, declaring it, saying, Rose McKinney is, Natalie Conrad is, Eva Kaiser is. You have to declare it, and you have a lot of different opportunities to make this declaration. When you think about it, when you're putting something out, whether it's on your social profiles, on your resume, in your face-to-face interactions, or the simple hello, my name is, you want to give people a shorthand message that they can remember about you. And I'm not talking about some slick slogan, but it is the thing that is the calling card. It is the thing that's like the advertising headline that's going to get people to go deeper. It's sort of like, you know, when you write a Twitter profile, it's short and sweet. When you think about putting your personal brand out there, you need to have something that gets to the gist of who you are. And it needs to be everywhere you are and wherever your audience is. So you're making this declaration. And again, you can say it, and I see a lot of LinkedIn profiles and even resumes with I, first person. I am this, I am that, I am that. Okay, the world doesn't buy I. The world needs something, and they're looking to see if you fit. So the more you can put it into stories and make it come to life so that people understand it, all the better. So brand stories are similar to a case study that you might write. You've got a situation, you've got some sort of action, and there was some sort of outcome. And so the cadence of questions that I like to use on this to make it pretty simple is what, so what, now what? Taking people through a sequence. And you'll find that that way when you're having a Q&A, whether it's with a colleague or with a prospect or a client or in a job interview, you can frame your answers around a story, around something that takes them from point A to point B to point C. And the trifecta for any good brand is to have something that's distinct, something that's relevant, and to be really consistent in the stories that you tell, the examples that you give, and the way that you share your brand out there. So let me tell you about a confession when I was out declaring my brand. Back in about 2002, I was ready for the next step in my career. And for those of you that don't know, I have spent my entire career on the agency side of public relations. I love agencies. I love the work. I love the variety. I love the pace. So 2002, I had been at my current job for about 7 years. I was ready for the next step. I was starting to, you know, sniff around and find out what was out there. I was interviewing a lot of places, and I was getting close, but I wasn't getting the offer. I wasn't getting that next opportunity. I was getting a little bit frustrated. So I was looking around, trying to figure out, what can I do? What am I doing wrong? What could I do better? How can I get the job that I really want? I found a book. It was called Make a Name for Yourself, A Woman's Guide to Personal Branding. And although it is a woman's guide, it isn't a gender-based approach. And the book is as good today as it was in 2002. It has a whole bunch of different exercises in it. And I committed to doing the exercises and writing down those adjectives and thinking about mission and vision. And as I did it, I came up with some things about myself that really helped me in interview situations. They helped me frame responses. They helped me think about my experience beyond, I did this, I did this, I did this, to what does it mean that I have had these experiences in my career? What will that offer a prospective employer? So my almost nightmare, my almost scary situation is I was interviewing for a job, and I've told this story before, so I'm just going to put it out there. I was interviewing for a VP of Client Services job at Karwoski & Courage, great public relations firm known for their creativity. And it came down to me and one other candidate. Well, I'm talking to my mentor about this great opportunity, and my mentor says, "Is that with Karwoski & Courage?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I'm the other candidate." So here we are, mentor and mentee, both in the running for this really fantastic job that we both really wanted. And I realized right then and there that if I was going to get this job, I really had to turn it up a notch. The job entailed a lot of creativity. Karwoski & Courage has a great reputation for being a creative shop. And throughout the course of the interviews and everything, Glenn and I had talked about our love of Mexican food, some recent trips that we had taken to Mexico. He was moving that weekend. We both loved guacamole. This was all just small talk in the process. But it occurred to me that I was going to have to convince him that I could be creative, that I could drive new business, that I could lead account teams. And I had this light bulb moment that I would deliver a guacamole guide to client service and new business development. I kid you not, I wrote a guacamole perspective. I put together a booklet talking about how I would approach the job, how I would create success, and I put together an entire guacamole kit, and I walked through the Skyway and I delivered avocados and garlic and chips and limes along with this guacamole perspective, and I got the job. I got the job over my mentor, who had probably 10 or 15 years more experience than I. And in the end, when I asked, why did I get the job? It was because it went beyond what was on the paper and what I said about myself. I showed what I could do. I brought to that opportunity a personal brand that created interest and believability. And so your brand has to be bold when it needs to be bold. And I'm not recommending that everybody put together a guacamole philosophy or put together a kit, but you need to know when and where to declare your brand and take it off of the comfort zone of a LinkedIn profile or off of a resume and really let it come to life. So what could have been a nightmare turned out to be a really great opportunity. And I'm gonna try to, okay. I'm back to the, let's see if this will let me switch to the next thing. So we have defined our brands, we have declared our brands, and what I started to hint at with the guacamole story was we have to deliver on the brand. Most of you know a brand is a promise, and if you don't deliver on the promise, you're going to have some chaos. So as you think about delivering on the promise, and this starts to move into the realm of reputation, your brand is everything. Your brand are the words that you choose to use, the images that you use, the actions that you take, and you have to work your plan. Just like you have a plan for your clients and your employers, and you have objectives and audiences and tactics, your personal brand, it is deserving of the best brand and the best plan you can possibly have. And as you work your plan throughout your career, that consistency is going to drive trust. And the more that you are trusted for being the things that you say you are, the more confident you're going to be. And the more confident you are going to be happier and more fulfilled in your job, in your business. And so the power and the potential of your brand, it's up to you. And so you get to make the promises, but don't make a promise you can't fulfill. If you're making something that you can't deliver on, reconsider what you say about yourself, because you want to have some alignment between who you say you are and what people believe you are. And if there's a disconnect, you'll work on it and you grow it. Or you reconfigure how you put your brand expression out there. So define, declare, deliver your personal brand. I can tell you that this process works. And it's not just me. It worked for me, absolutely. I took those brand exercises, I read that book, I reconfigured my resume and my interviews, and I put it out there. It has worked not just once, it has worked throughout my career. I have given these 3 Ds of define, declare, deliver to my friends, to my neighbors, to students, and it takes them places. When you invest in your personal brand and you take it really seriously and you have some fun with it, it will work for you. And it has worked for me time and time again. Some of you see the tagline up on my company logo, results that matter. That's something that really grew out of this process. When I was thinking about my brand, and I came up with a couple of things that were really key, I know that I am driven by generating results. But I don't want to just generate results for the sake of results. They have to really matter. They have to make a difference. They have to be important. And that really became a whole part of my career, whether it was at Karwoski and Courage, whether it was at Ristol, whether it was forming Pineapple. And so it really becomes the foundation of what you believe in, and it will take you places that you want to go. And that's another thing. Your brand is about going where you want to go. It's not necessarily about being what somebody else wants it to be. So before we jump into Q&A, I'll leave you with a bit of inspiration. This is from an artist, Faith Ringgold. And she said, you can't just sit around and wait for somebody to say who you are. You need to write it and paint it and do it. This is so true for your personal brand. Nobody else is going to do it for you. And you wouldn't want them to, because they're not going to get it right. Only you can do it, and only you will get it right. But you can get it right with a lot of help. Find a brand buddy, decide that you're going to do this together, walk all the way through the process, and then every few years, go back and revisit it. Ask, where have you gotten stronger? Have your interests changed? Let your brand continue to evolve. And just like the most admired brands that are always on that list of the top 150, your brand will have consistency, it will remain relevant, and it will remain differentiated, but you'll have to make little tweaks along the way as you go. So with that, I'm going to open this up for some questions. I'm leaving my contact information. I would love to connect with you here today or after the fact, but please reach out and let me know what you're thinking. I want to know where you are today in your careers and your personal brand journeys. And I would also encourage other people that are listening in, let's not just have it be Rose answering questions. If you've got some perspective on these things, jump in and ask.